Thank you very much, Madam Prime Minister, for joining us, giving us a bit of your time today. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm okay, dear Peter.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Madam Prime Minister, recently you were here in Washington. You held meetings with officials here in Washington, D.C. What was your key message to them?
It was important for me to be in Washington. First, I came as a representative of the head of state, Felix Antoine Tshisekedi Chilombo, to discuss a win-win partnership between the United States and the Republic of Congo, but focusing on American investors as well as the investments that the Congolese diaspora in the United States could bring to the Democratic Republic of Congo. In this context, it was important to have these exchanges. I was accompanied, as you saw, by a number of ministers, mines, hydraulic resources and energy, communications, foreign trade, as well as governors. And there were also representatives of the Federation of Enterprises of Congo. This approach was important because it allowed us to show what the Democratic Republic of Congo had to offer to the world and to the United States of America as a potential for investment, both in what we call today critical minerals, because it allows us to really move towards this energy transition in the same way as the potential we have in terms of hydraulic resources, which really allows us to go on energy production. And we were also able to demonstrate that with its population of over 100 million, the DRC is a country with high consumption potential, but that with 70% of the population being young, we have a strong demand in terms of job creation. That is why today we look to the private sector as a privileged partner to move forward in this job creation, in the diversification of our economy as we seek it, and also especially in the transformation at the local level with an assured added value, and also see how in this partnership we can strengthen human capacities, particularly for our youth, because it is with this youth that we will be able to develop our country. So the message that has been transmitted is clear. We offer a number of potentialities, and it is time to jump on the train because if we do not, others are ready to come forward. But in this context, it is also important for us to indicate that we are working enormously on improving the business climate in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And for that, there is a whole reform mechanism that has been put in place, notably with the digitalization of our financial authorities, also with this process that has been launched to fight against corruption. We really care about this as well as the judicial and legal security of all investors, American, Congolese, or others. And for us, it's really important to demonstrate that today. If Americans want to do business in the Democratic Republic of Congo, they are welcome. And we as a government are ready to help ensure that these investments are made in a fair and sustainable manner for the development of our country. So the other thing that we have also been able to demonstrate is that in this improvement of the business climate, of the fight against corruption, today we are in a second program with the FME. We completed the first program last year, and so the completion of a program with the FME demonstrates that we have been able to fulfill a certain number of conditionalities with the FME, which prove that we are on the right track to really have a better business climate. There are still challenges, but for us, these challenges are business potentialities for the country because there is always better to do. And with the partners, we will be able to move forward. We had the pleasure of meeting during this economic forum that took place in Washington. American companies that were able to testify to the fact that they work in the Democratic Republic of Congo, but they also highlighted the challenges that were theirs, notably in what is the mining sector, the illegal exploitation of resources by certain people. And that's something we are already working on because we've set up with the head of state a commission that includes the Ministry of the Interior, the Ministry of Mines, as well as the Ministry of Justice to prosecute anyone today who continues to work illegally in the mines, in the mining quarries, which have already been granted to prospectors. And so we really want to ensure that on our side, we are doing what is necessary to ensure that these things happen correctly.
Looking at the relationship between the DRC and the US, do you think that the US can do something for the people of Congo to have peace? Because recently we've had trouble with rebel groups like the M23. The DRC has also accused neighboring Rwanda of trying to cause trouble. Rwanda has denied it. But what role do you think the US can play to try to bring some form of peace or restore peace in the DRC?
Before I can answer your question, I would just like to clarify one thing. The fact that the RDC declares that Rwanda is attacking our country in its territory integrity and its sovereignty, it's not just something that is denounced, indicated by the Democratic Republic of Congo, but it is something that is repeated in the various reports, notably from the United Nations, as well as from a number of non-governmental organizations. That being said, if we are around the table, especially in Washington, with the mediation of President Trump, whom we salute, it is because there is indeed this problem of aggression against our territory by Rwanda, associated with these subjectives that are the AFCM 23 terrorist groups. And so in this context, the mediation role that the United States of America is carrying out today, particularly with President Trump, is an appreciable role because as much as others have done, for example, at the level of the African Union or the United Nations today, this key role that President Trump plays in this mediation is an important role for us because, in fact, what the Congolese population seeks above all is peace, but also that we can ensure respect for the integrity of our territory. And so these are questions on which, as we like to say, these are red lines that we believe cannot be crossed. We need respect for our sovereignty. We need respect for our territorial integrity. And we believe that today, the mediation role that the United States of America is playing through President Trump is an important role. There have already been a number of sanctions given by the United States of America against a number of people who make up this group that is attacking our country. But it was also important at the level of the United States there be a good understanding of the problem, which I think is the case today. And in this context now, we know who is who and who is doing what. It is much clearer now to pave the way for peace, which we hope for, because for us it is not acceptable, whatever the reason given, that we can continue to see millions of deaths on our territory, particularly the territories occupied by Rwanda, the AFC, the M23, that we can have more than 7 million war-displaced people today. We are seeing a clear desire to repopulate by pushing out the communities of origin. Repopulation by pushing communities of origin out of certain localities to repopulate them with others. So all these human rights violations are unacceptable issues that we also want to put an end to today, because we believe that our population has suffered enough. As we have said, without peace, it is difficult to have development throughout the Congolese territory. It is true, when we talk about investment, we also look at the fact that this aggression is happening on a tiny part of the territory. Fortunately, it's not happening on the entire territory. But as we have said and repeated, from the moment it is a tiny part of the territory that is occupied, it is not acceptable. These people who are suffering the horrors of war today are Congolese, and it is imperative that peace reign again. Of course, we as the Democratic Republic of Congo, with the President of the Republic, have embarked on this peace negotiation process, because without peace, there is no possible global development. But once again, it is very clear that for us, as long as the integrity of the territory is violated, as long as there is no ceasefire, it is obvious that the Democratic Republic of Congo will continue to defend itself.
You know, there have been recent reports that there appears to be a Chinese influence due to the vast natural resources of Congo or Kinshasa. What role do you think Congo can play in attracting foreign direct investment to Congo to create jobs for the people, for employment, and to restore some peace in Congo?
Listen, as I said at the outset, this is part of the head of state's commitments as well as the government's action program. For us, it is important to diversify our economy as well as so as not to depend only on the mining sector, because the mining sector is a development accelerator. But it is absolutely necessary to develop other sectors such as industrialization, agriculture, etc. But also to diversify this economy, we need a diversification of our partners, of our partnership. That's why it's true we have Chinese people today. We have Chinese companies that are in the country. Those who work in compliance with our laws and rules, there is no problem with them. But at the same time, it is not because they are there that today they will cover all the development needs that exist in the country. Not at all. That is why we think that today it is more than time for the United States of America, which was present in the Democratic Republic of Congo a few years ago, to come back. Because I think that today those who are in business as well aware of the opportunity that the Democratic Republic of Congo offers in the development that we want. And so for me, once again, there is room for everyone, and particularly for American private investors. And we just need to agree on the type of partnership that we want. We have a number of laws today that allows us to go either to special economic zones or to public-private partnerships. And so we have a certain number of a range, I would say, of legal provisions that exist to support precisely these American investors that we want to see in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Madam Prime Minister, some of the critics of previous governments in Congo say that in spite of the promise of Congo, in spite of the vast natural resources of Congo, the wealth has not translated to the people. The people don't benefit from the country's vast natural resources and wealth. What is going to be different from your government in terms of leveraging what Congo has to the benefit or for the benefit of the people of Congo?
Listen, what we are looking for today is effectively to ensure that all these riches that we have in the Democratic Republic of Congo can primarily benefit the population. Now, this development process that should benefit the population is a process that can take time. It is true that some people also tend to want to look at the glass as half empty. We prefer to look at the glass as half full because there are a number of mechanisms that have been put in place, a number of reforms, a number of actions that have been taken so that today we are considered a country interested for investment. The other thing I would like to give as an example, for example, you talked about the Chinese. We've had in this country since, I think, if my memory serves me right, 2008, a contract that was called the Sino-Congolese Chino-Congolese contract, which is a contract that proposes the construction of infrastructure in exchange for mines that are exploited by Chinese companies. Today, for 2 years, we have had to review the terms of this agreement to ensure greater funding, which has increased to $17 billion for the benefit of the Congolese population through a number of infrastructures that are being built at the national level. And that's what's interesting. So to see how today we can ensure with what we collect as resources in the context of these different partnerships, that we can really ensure to work in terms of basic infrastructure for the population. Similarly, the president has launched since 2022 what we call the local development program of the 145 territories, which precisely through the DRC's own funding, but also support at the level of the International Monetary Fund, we started a first component with the construction of schools, health centers, administrative buildings in the territories. We still have a lot to do because there are still localities where these works are being carried out a little late. But in the localities or territories where there have been really rapid actions in this direction, we have been able to see a number of brick schools emerging from the ground. We have been able to see health centers and all that. It is for the benefit of the population because, as you know, today in the Democratic Republic of Congo, we, with the head of state, we have effectively launched free education, which is fundamental, primary education, which is important for the education of our children. We are also putting in place universal health coverage. I think in the United States, you know what it is to be able to have universal health care coverage that allows Congolese citizens to have access to health care and puts less pressure from a financial point of view on the population. And to do this, we started with free maternity care. So the cost of childbirth for mothers and the first care for babies from 0 to 3 months. And it is a process that will gradually move forward to go to a greater extent and target the most population for women as men and children and young people. And so it really demonstrates this willingness of the government not only to collect resources to collect, but rather to have it in mind the well-being of our population.
In terms of the critical role that the DRC can play in terms of the global and international market, is DRC ready for prime time?
Écoutez, si aujourd'hui nous sommes arrivés jusqu'à Washington pour montrer ce que nous sommes capables de.
Listen, if today we have come to Washington to show that we are capable of doing and to show what we are capable of doing, and that American companies have demonstrated the work they were already doing in the RDC. It is that today we are ready and we continue to strengthen our capacities to move forward in this direction. Like I said, the RDC itself, that's 100 million inhabitants. We even estimate today at 120. We have a census process underway, and this 120 million inhabitants, it's a significant consumer potential. It's 120 million inhabitants, it's a significant consumer potential. We are surrounded by 9 neighboring countries. So you can imagine with 9 neighboring countries, we can go up to 200 to 250 million, considering the estimated population in our neighboring consumer countries. And in addition, the RDC, with its resources, we talked about the environmental resources, we talked about mines, etc. It's fertile soil, all of that are resources that today can be transformed and can bring a lot, not only to the heart of Africa that we are today, to all of Africa, but also to the world. We have at the level of Africa, for example, today, this Zlika agreement, which allows precisely to start having an integrated market at the African level. But we also continue to work with other countries, such as, for example, with the United States and the European Union on the Orubitu corridor, which is not only an access route for the transport of minerals to the outside, minerals that can come from the RDC, but which must also be seen as a development hub in the area. And in all the different corridors that we have today, we believe that we are in a position to be able to move towards development, whether it is the green corridor that goes from Kinshasa to Ecuador. So it takes a little all the northeast, or rather north and northeast of the Democratic Republic of Congo, whether it is the corridor that goes from the south to Bananal at the mouth of the Congo River. These are really areas today that are called to be developed. Not only with that, we are putting in place through the special economic zones, but also other potential programs that can be developed. The same is true, for example, with the INGA 3 program for the electrification of the RDC, which will really allow to have an energy potential not only for the industrialization of the country, for the transformation at the local level, but also allow in the long term to give a little more energy to other countries such as South Africa. So we are really in a process today that if it is not stopped precisely by the negative effects of the war, will quickly allow us to have a key role for the development of the country, for the development of Africa, and also for the world.
Before you go, Madam Prime Minister, what should the people of DRC expect from your government? And number 2, is your government ready to make peace with your neighbors to ensure good neighborliness and restore hope and peace among residents in the Great Lakes region and the Southern African Development Community?
The first thing, what can the population expect from the government? As we said in the framework of the government's action program, which responds precisely to a number of commitments of the head of state, it is really to ensure the well-being of the population. It's true that it's not easy, but the process has been launched. I give an example. It's been a long time since we've seen, and I think even in your countries, you haven't experienced the reduction, by example, of fuel prices. This is something that our population has not experienced for years. So it is something beneficial for this population. The other thing too, many of many of our fellow citizens have, as soon as the president was elected for his second term, in the same way as soon as I was invested by the National Assembly, many of our fellow citizens asked for the lowering of the exchange rate. For practically a year, what we started to do by working in harmony with the Central Bank of the Congo is to already ensure a stable exchange rate. And today, through budgetary policies, but also the monetary policy conducted by the central bank, we can see an appreciation of the Congolese franc compared to all other foreign currencies. Now, the most important thing is to ensure that this is appreciation of the Congolese franc this appreciation of the Congolese franc can continue in a stable macroeconomic framework, but also to have an improvement in purchasing power with price drops. We did a number of surveys more or less 3 to 4 days ago. The latest surveys we were able to carry out, we were able to see that the basic foodstuff at the level of wholesalers have been able to have a decrease of more or less 20 to 30%. But this must also be reflected at the level of retailers, at the level of markets, and this will really demonstrate that the purchasing power of the population allows them today to acquire basic necessities at a price that is quite reasonable. This is the work we continue to do today. So for the other question, of course, we are ready to make peace. I think that the President of the Republic said it when he was at the Global Gateway in Brussels. He even extended his hand to his Rwandan counterpart for what he said, the peace of the brave. Now, as they say, there are still red lines that we will not want to compromise on the fact that of all the agreements, whether with the latest United Nations Resolution 2773, whether at the level of the African Union or the Senate, it was understood, and it is also in the Washington agreements on the way of June, that we should move towards a ceasefire. And for that, it is absolutely necessary that this ceasefire be done on both sides. We, at the level of the country, at the level of the armed forces of the Democratic Republic of Congo, we want to move towards this ceasefire. But as long as we are attacked, as long as we still have trucks of Rwandan soldiers crossing the border to come and fight in the RDC, it will be very difficult for us not to respond because we are only protecting our territory. In the same way, in the Washington Agreement, it was requested that the FDLR be neutralized, which has been Rwanda's complaint for a number of years. But if you know it, and if you look at the various reports that have been made on this subject, this FDLR are still at a residual number. And we, on our side, have started awareness raising through the armed forces to request a return to Rwanda, a voluntary return of this FDLR. But at the same time, we must not forget that these areas that have been located, this FDLR, are today areas that are occupied. So all this means that it must be really well taken into account in the framework of the discussion that are on the way. Whether at the level of Washington, we talked about it a lot, whether it is the current discussions at the level of Doha, also with Qatar. So all these elements must really be for us elements that advance the negotiation process for peace. Because once again, the Congolese people are a people of peace. All we ask is to be able to live in our home, within our borders, in peace and in good harmony with our neighboring countries somewhere.
Nous, tout ce que nous demandons, c'est pouvoir vivre chez nous, dans nos frontières, dans la paix et en bonne harmonie avec nos pays voisins, quels qu'ils soient.
Thank you very much, Madam Prime Minister. Merci beaucoup. I appreciate your time.